Are you grinding like crazy, but somehow things feel stagnant? It feels like you're not getting the improvements you're looking for. Well, it might be that you're a candidate for taking a break. And with that break, you'll actually get more performance gains than just grinding your ass off, which I feel like for a lot of us, just grinding and playing our way through the problems is often how we want to solve the problem. And there is a reason why this is often a strategy that is selected. I don't know if we should even call it a strategy, but this is often why this is selected as an approach. And it's because when you play a lot, you feel sharper. You know, your mechanics and everything you feel sharper because you are putting more time into the game. However, the stagnancy is typically not caused by you not being sharp enough mechanically. It is caused by some decision-making patterns that you have in your mind that you are just unable to sort of break away from or even be fully aware of. And the more repetitions that you get, the more you're grinding, you're actually very likely making the problem worse because you're reinforcing all of the neural pathways that are associated with a lot of those issues. And one of the reasons why this happens is because when we're playing, esports games, I think they are highly complex in terms of decision making. And so there is a lot of things that you are just doing without even realizing, things that maybe in the past you decided, oh, this is how I path in this situation. And then later, now you're not thinking about that because you're thinking about other things that are difficult or challenges. So if you layer all of these different things that you've optimized over time, all of these different ways that you react to situations, there is this huge mess of stuff happening that you can't possibly be consciously aware of all of these things at once. You just aren't able to do that. And so when too many bad things build up or the wrong things build up in the wrong way, then you're in a situation where you might just be hitting your head against a wall because you can't kind of untangle it all, really. It's hard to really see what's going wrong. And even if the issue is that you're not, let's say, going downwards in your performance, but you're just not improving instead, that's still obviously a problem. And there's a secondary impact here that is really negative, which is the emotional impact. If you're experiencing stagnancy, you feel it. Maybe you see other people improving beyond you, and you're putting in as much time and you're not getting the same kind of progress. That doesn't feel good. Maybe you're not feeling good about your results. Maybe you're just not seeing yourself improving in other areas that you're used to seeing yourself improve in. So that doesn't feel good. And the fact that you're not improving likely means that you're probably not winning as much as well. So that's starting to not feel good also. So there's lots of things that start to build up where we start to become frustrated with the game because maybe we are trying to employ different things, different approaches to solve these problems, but none of it seems to really be working. So if all of this stuff is happening, now you're suddenly creating this emotional relationship with the game of frustration and disappointment. So that's not going to be putting you in a good mindset to be able to play and perform well. So now you've created a second problem in this particular case. So with all of that said, I will now make the case for why breaks can be quite powerful in helping us to bypass some of these issues. So there's a few theories I want to go over and a few ideas I want to go over here that kind of relate to this because I was going to talk about this because I'm someone that obviously I don't have a science background per se. I didn't go to university and study science and do all of the academia and so on and so forth. But I'm someone that has a lot of experience with all of these problems firsthand. I've experienced all these problems, and very early on in my career, I noticed that strategic breaks were actually very powerful in precipitating a great degree of improvement and helping you to bypass some of these problems. So let's go through some of the ideas, the theories as they relate to this particular thing. So the first one is called the incubation theories. I'm just going to read out a small description of this. This theory suggests that when individuals take a break from actively thinking about a problem, their subconscious mind continues to work on it, leading to insights or novel solutions. By stepping away, the brain is relieved of the cognitive load, allowing new ideas to form and promoting creativity when the players return to the task. So this is, I definitely think this is something that is applicable because if all of your energy is going into actually playing, that is a huge amount of cognitive load. So you're not necessarily giving yourself a lot of time to kind of step away from what you're doing and just allow your brain to kind of figure it out almost by itself. Because a lot of the things that we do in the game are intuitive. And so a part of the problem is by us reinforcing all these neural pathways by doing the same things over and over and over again, it makes it so that it's harder to be intuitive because we are reinforcing the wrong things over and over and over again. You can kind of think of it like, imagine you're in a forest, and if you imagine that you're deciding, okay, I need to get from this point in the forest to exit the forest, and I'm going to go through this path. So you do that and you go through that path, and then every time now when this problem is in front of you, you pick the same path. So now that's really trod in. So over time, it's going to be really hard to take a different path, because that is the one path that you have reinforced again and again and again and again. Everything around you is overgrown, so it's going to be very difficult to actually pick a different path. And one of the things that happens when you take a break is it's kind of like the path that you created there kind of that depression is going to be alleviated, and it'll be easier to take different paths because you're not creating this massive amount of repetition over time. And our brain, if we're not reinforcing these neural pathways over and over and over again, they are going to be easier to change over time. So this is the whole point of why really good discipline practice is important, because when you get to the top level and you're very good and you're very efficient and all of your decision making is really, really top notch, in that case, you want all that stuff to be really heavily reinforced, because that makes it be the case that when there is pressure, when there are these different mental challenges, things that might throw you off your game, you're so rehearsed that you can just fall into your practice and just go down those pathways that you've reinforced over and over again. But in this example, the whole problem, or part of the problem that we're describing, is that we have reinforced things that are not helping us in the ways that we want them to. So that's one interesting theory there. And another one is the cognitive restorative theory. So research on restorative environments by Rachel Kaplan and Stephen Kaplan shows that stepping away from mentally taxing activities allows the brain to recover and restore itself. So esports, with its constant strategic thinking and fast decision making, drains mental resources, and a break provides the cognitive recovery needed to avoid the burnout and stagnation. So yeah, it's another case, I think, that's similar to the first one, where we have a lot of this load that's constantly on us, and so we're not giving ourselves time to have a break and recover. So obviously a great analog here is, if any of you have trained in the gym, if you went hard in the paint every day of the week, and give your body no time to recover, you're going to have terrible progress. In fact, understanding recovery and how to place recovery and how to look after your body during recovery is going to amount to the highest level of gains that you'll ever get. But if you don't ever think about recovery and you're just focused only on training, then you're obviously ignoring half of the process there. And so recovery can be good or it can be shit. So we want it to be good so that we're able to enter our training at full strength and having taken on all of the benefits from the previous days of practice. So again, recovery is something that is important to think about. So number 3 here is neuroplasticity. So this is, neuroplasticity is a very interesting one, of course. And so continuous engagement in the same activity can lead to the reinforcement of existing neural pathways. This is what I was talking about, making it harder to think creatively or develop new strategies. By taking a break, players will give their brains time to form new neural connections, promoting learning and adaptability when they return. This concept aligns with the studies on neuroplasticity, showing that rest periods can enhance cognitive flexibility and problem-solving skills. So exactly as I was describing with the forest analogy, in terms of how the neural connections work, a break is good because it allows you more flexibility in learning, more flexibility to take new paths, new decisions. And the new decisions, if we think about the other couple points we made about the incubation theory or the cognitive restorative theory, the solutions might just come to you, in the recovery. It might just be the case that once you place yourself in the same environment, instead of doing that same thing you would be doing, that you've been doing every single day, in perpetuity, you've taken your break and you see that problem, and an idea just comes to you, something else, something different, and you're able to kind of execute in a way that is more beneficial to you. So the next one and the last one we'll talk about here is mind wandering and the default mode network. So breaks often induce mind wandering, a state in which the brain switches to the default mode network. This is associated with self-reflection and creativity. The default mode network is believed to play a role in integrating information and coming up with new insights, something that is harder to do when we are too focused on repetitive tasks. For professional players, breaks can trigger this network and lead to creative gameplay strategies. So I have to say that I have experienced personally breaks precipitating these types of changes where I'm able to go in after grinding my training, just grinding and grinding. I take the break and I come back and I look at a situation. I can look at it differently. Something that is also stimulating for your recovery days here that can kind of help to maybe confer some of these changes is also watching other people, putting yourself in the perspective of better players, or trying to understand and study the game from the perspective of other players that you think are good for various reasons. Maybe you're looking at them because you feel like, oh, they play a similar style to me, or maybe it's a professional player that doesn't play a similar style to you, but you want to understand how it works, where are the strengths of their style, and maybe you can figure out something from them that you can take into your own game and integrate. There's lots of things that you can do that will stimulate your mind. And when your mind is not just completely suffocated in the day in, day out, 8-hour grind of playing yourself personally, you're going to have way more mental bandwidth to be able to really kind of allow those ideas to be absorbed and to percolate in your mind. And so then when you are coming off of the break, you've given yourself more of an ability to be able to come up with a different idea for a situation that maybe you played in one way, or only a couple ways previously. And that part of the stagnation that you're experiencing is the fact that you just can't quite seem to see a different solution, in that particular context. And so I think this kind of covers the topic fairly well. So breaks are really powerful. If we don't take breaks, if we just continue to experience the same stagnant decision-making processes, that's going to be, as I mentioned, pretty negative for your emotional connection to the game too, which will also impact your performance. So it can become kind of a devastating cycle. So we don't want that feedback loop to exist. So we can make sure that we can have an interrupt there by just taking a break. And there's a couple ways you can look at this in terms of the actual practice of taking a break. So it can either be the case that obviously, you make sure that you take a couple days off a week. That's perfectly reasonable. Maybe it's just one day off per week, or maybe it's more than that. It really depends on what you feel is most beneficial. Everybody is different. So when you take a concept like this, like we've discussed, and we're talking about like very short breaks, so like a day or two or whatever it might be during a week, that's something that you should experiment with and see what feels good or what feels bad for my training. We're all complex beings, and there's no one fit all answer for any of these things. But we do understand, obviously, breaks confer benefit. It is our recovery period. So take that as you will. And then obviously there is the opportunity also for longer breaks. So I think with longer breaks, you can obviously get sometimes even a more powerful effect of coming back and being able to see a lot of the game quite differently compared to what you were doing when you were just on the grind and in season. So what I used to do is I would make sure that when I would get to the end of a season, I would take a break. It would feel pretty natural because, if you're not playing, for a competition, for me at least, it was hard to be motivated to be on the similar type of grind if there's no competition that is coming up, in the next, month or two. So I would use that as an opportunity to take, a couple of weeks off, maybe if I'm going to be wanting to game, play something else or just do something else. And this is also nice because you can look at everything that you have done in the previous season, and this is a great opportunity to also change other things that you may want to change, because maybe you feel like during the season you really wanted to try out some new mouse shapes, or you really wanted to try out a new sends, or you wanted to try out a new setup, or just you wanted to change things that in season it's not reasonable to change. Now is your best opportunity to do that, and maybe instead of going straight back into grinding ranked or whatever it might be, you can instead take a couple weeks and say, you know what, I actually want to really focus on improving aim. So I'm going to spend this month where aim is going to be my focus. I'm going to go through the Voltaic daily improvement method, or I'm going to do like just rigorous aim training, and that's going to be what I do. And instead of grinding the game, that's my thing now, and this is the goal that I set for myself. And this is also going to give you a break from decision making in that game. So it's going to provide a similar way of taking time off that is still going to be productive. So there's lots of ways that you can productively take breaks, or how there's lots of ways to use them strategically so that you're able to look at yourself as a player and iterate. This is a great point when you're at the end of a season to use that time wisely to recover, to iterate on yourself, and to prepare yourself to be an absolute killer and a better version of yourself moving into the next season. So there's the two versions of the break. The more bite-sized version where we're talking about the more kind of like weekly recovery versus I'm actually in a slump, or I'm at the end of a season, or things are really bad and I just need to take time away from the game, definitely a good opportunity to do that. And I hope this was helpful. I think breaks are something that we often don't want to do, but sometimes they are extremely powerful. So experiment with it if you're finding yourself resonating with any of the ideas in this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.